So I maxed out a credit card, went $98,000 in debt, hired a coach. Very first call with that coach changed my life fundamentally forever. I was telling her, I'm doing all the podcasts, listening to the books, reading the books. I'm doing all the things. Why isn't it happening for me? I want this to work so bad. And she said very calmly, Brad, you are so attached to success that you're missing the whole point. You're under the impression that you shouldn't be where you are right now. Business, success, and money, it's never going to make you happy. It's rewiring your mind for happiness that will make you successful.
Welcome to the Be It Till You See It podcast, where we talk about taking messy action, knowing that perfect is boring. I'm Lesley Logan, Pilates instructor and fitness business coach. I've trained thousands of people around the world, and the number one thing I see stopping people from achieving anything is self-doubt. My friends, action brings clarity, and it's the antidote to fear. Each week, my guests will bring bold, executable, intrinsic, and targeted steps that you can use to put yourself first and be it till you see it. It's a practice, not a perfect. Let's get started. All right, babes, I'm keeping this quick because our guest today is going to blow your mind. Get your notebooks out, get your pens out, get ready to hit rewind. If you're driving in your car, make sure Siri listens to you so you can rewind whenever you need to, because this episode is an episode I've wanted to have for over a year. For over a year, I wanted to have this episode. So Brad Bizjack is our guest today, and we're going to talk about perfectionism, certainty, being an achiever, and literally how do you actually change your life? How do you actually be it till you see it? So stay tuned all the way to the end. You don't want to miss it. Here's Brad Bizjack. All right, be it babe. Get ready. Just get ready. I already know it's going to be amazing. I'm so excited. I've wanted this person on the pod since I heard him on my old coach's pod. Here's the deal. I remember seeing this guy's name on my feed in several podcasts. Okay. And I was like, okay, someone's doing a launch. That's fine. And then I saw him on my old coach's pod and I was like, I haven't listened to a pod for a while. I'm going to listen to this guy. So I'm walking through the streets of Cambodia right before we're out to have a retreat. And I listened to this thing and I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize I'm stuck. This is the feeling I'm having. I'm feeling stuck. So I'm going to sign up for this. So I told Brad, my husband, Brad, I said, babe, I signed us up for a launch. I think I want to be launched at. It's been a while. So let's do it. Let's just go through someone's thing. Let's just get taught. Let's get our cup filled. And then we'll just see what kind of emails come through. Because of the timing, my husband actually was on Hong Kong time, meaning when we got back from Cambodia, he was up every day at 5 a.m. And your calls were at like 6 a.m. our time, something early. Brad would never, ever, he would have to watch the replays. We dog walked every morning listening to you. And of course, the day that you're like, okay, I'm running this program, we're like, okay, we're the first to sign up. Like we're already in. And we stuck with it for 6 months, a year. It was amazing. So Brad Bizjack is our guest today. And the reason I wanted to have him on is because of what you're hearing right now. Brad, what do you rock at? Who are you? Tell us everything about you.
First of all, that was like the best way of getting into each other's worlds I've ever heard. Like, what a crazy story. So grateful for the opportunity to be here. I help people rewire the limiting beliefs, toxic thought patterns, limiting emotional patterns that are getting in the way of the success, freedom, and fulfillment they really deserve, that they don't really know are going on behind the scenes. So we help people identify that and shift that.
I think that's so many people who need that. Everybody. Most people don't know they need it. And the ones that do kind of get overwhelmed with all of the things. They get involved in that perfectionism. Like, I got to check this box. I got to do this thing. And if I just read this one more book, then I will be fixed. Right?
100%. I think people will use overstudying as procrastination in disguise and not even realize they're doing it just because they're overvaluing certainty. And we can go more into that if you want. But yeah, that's a very, very common thing we see.
You are correct. I actually looked up signs of imposter syndrome, right? Or the types of imposter syndrome. Because there's an imposter syndrome, which is you're new at something. So you are going to feel that way because you're new at something. And that's great. But also then there's the imposter syndrome when you're actually qualified to do things, but you're feeling like an imposter. And so I was teaching on this. And so I did some research. And one of the signs that you are causing that is that perfectionism. If I just get one more certificate, if I learn one more thing, if I study this, and I'm a Pilates instructor who teaches Pilates instructors, and they'll go, I can't take your business class because actually I need to just study this one to chair. And I'm like, no one even knows what a one to chair is. Until they know what Pilates is, no one cares. You need to know how to run a business that doesn't burn you out. but people will overwhelm themselves. So can we talk about that perfectionism, certainty, like what are the signs that people are doing these things? Because I think sometimes they don't even see it in themselves.
Yeah, I think, when we talk about rewiring limiting beliefs and toxic thoughts, like you said, I don't think people know they're doing it. But if anyone's ever been in a situation where they know they want their life to change and they just can't get themselves to take action, or there's a limiting behavior they participate in and they don't know why they do it, even though it's not serving them, or they know exactly what to do and they're procrastinating consistently, or they're in a spot where they just can't get themselves to move and they see their laptop staring at them, begging them to change their life. And even though they care so much, they just don't care in the moment. And there's this piece of you that says, I know I'm meant for so much more than what I'm getting right now, but for some reason, I can't get myself to move or take action. Any of those are some of the most common symptoms that I see, but there's also one on the flip side. And that's calling out all the achievers in the room, the people that have taken the action or forced themselves through willpower to get moving. Those people end up basing their worth on more
Mm.
success, more money. And so it feels like their worth is a moving target. So they'll bounce from goal to goal, peak to peak, to do list to do list. Nothing feels like enough. And everything they do just feels like they're battling burnout. So if you're in a spot where you either are constantly seeking the how, which is basically exactly what we were just talking about, glorified procrastination. And let me actually backtrack on this a little bit because I think it's really important. We need to know the how, just not right away,
Mm.
right? You can't head east looking for the sunset, right? It doesn't work that way. And so when you know what you want and why you want it, the how reveals itself. But when you get so caught up in seeking the how because of living in this fear of not being certain, then you end up just tiptoeing around the edges of your dream, playing not to lose instead of playing to win. So any action you do take is you mistaking movement for achievement, and you'll take little itty bitty actions instead of the ones that will actually yield results. And so you feel like you're spending all day on this dream, but you're not getting anywhere. And the main reason is because you are overvaluing certainty at a very high level, which is really what perfectionism is. It just means that you are afraid of what happens if you're not totally certain, and that
Mm.
somehow it's going to mean that you're unworthy. If you think about the human brain, its job is not to make you happy. Its job is to make sure you survive. And you see people all the time saying, well, I self sabotage, I get in my own way. Well, it's physically impossible to self sabotage. Think about it. Your brain is a survivalist. Its job is to keep you alive. So why would it ever cause you harm? What's actually happening is you're just meeting a need. And the survival based need that's embedded into all of our DNA is the need for certainty. And when you overvalue certainty, what actually happens is, like, think about it, millions of years ago, you weren't worried about building your Pilates business or whatever it is. You were worried about the saber-toothed tiger that was hiding in the bushes that was going to eat your baby, right? You didn't have these you weren't worried about success and fulfillment. You were worried about staying alive. Well, we don't have the same threats, but we do have the same mind. And so we link up putting ourselves out there on social or starting a podcast or sending an email or prospecting whatever or starting a new fitness regimen. We link it up as a survival based threat when it's not.
Yeah.
It's just misplaced. And so that's what a lot of people do. And I see people overstudy all day long and they use personal development as a way to escape developing personally. And it just gets in their own way.
Oh my God. Everyone hit rewind. That was the most amazing. That is the most amazing thing I've heard. And I also think like what a great clip. And like it's a great question to ask yourself. Like, am I doing this to escape? Am I working on this thing one more time? Because to busy ourselves from what it actually is, which is the change we have to make. And change is really difficult. I actually want to say, I don't know that change is actually that difficult. Because from what I understand about setting habits and mindset, right? So during the pandemic, I was like, I need to figure out why, like, some people make a habit and some people don't. Like, what's going on here? And also, I had a great yoga teacher who was like, that we always want to make things that are right or wrong, bad or good. And he's like, actually, that's not how the world works. Like, because if it's serving you, like, it could be bad for one person, but not for you, right? So I was like, okay. And I started with BJ Fogg, and he said there's no such thing as a bad habit. Every single thing we do is serving our mind. Our mind actually truly lives off of what makes us feel good. And If you're like, but I hate scrolling, it's a bad habit, right? But when you scroll, something is happening in your mind that is giving you relief, excitement, joy, or it could even just be like, like you can just like exhale, right? So your brain doesn't know bad or good. It knows shame and judgment doesn't make me feel good. And these things make me feel good. And so we actually create habits instantly based on emotions. So that's why I think that change isn't hard if we know how our brain works.
100%. If you think about change, change does not take a long time to do. It actually happens in an instant when you actually have the leverage to create change,
Mm.
right? Like so many people have had a time in their lives when they've dealt with a really painful situation, like a tough relationship, or let's say that they weren't exercising or eating well or so anything like that. And they've known that they should take a different action, but they haven't gotten themselves to do it until one day
Mhm.
when something happens and all of a sudden some lever is pulled and all of a sudden it's easy and it's not hard anymore. It's because in the moment you started shifting the beliefs and the emotions that were going on behind the scenes to create leverage to actually move.
Yeah.
And there's actually a reason why this happens. And I'm happy to dive into how behavior change actually
Yes.
works in
Yes.
people. If you
Yes.
want me to dive deep into that,
Yes.
I can. But if we think, so let's say most people, if you imagine like a big triangle with different like levels in this triangle, at the very base of this triangle is your 3D environment or your results. This is really how life is. Now, most people don't recognize that all of life is cause and effect, everything. And if you obsess over the effect, you forget the cause. And if you don't focus on the cause, you can no longer influence the effect. Well, most people think that their life circumstances are the cause of how they feel, how they live, everything. They think, I don't have this money, therefore, I can't be happy. I can't take different action. I can't grow a big business. I don't have a big business, therefore, I can't ask people to join my business, right? It's backwards thinking. It's once I have a different life, then I can take a different action. So, what most people end up doing is they sit around complaining about their circumstances. And the challenge with complaining is you only complain about things that you could change, you're just too afraid to, right? So you don't complain about gravity, you complain about money. Well, money is something you can make right now if you want to. You could attract it anytime you want to. So it starts at the bottom of this pyramid with your 3D environment and your results. Now, most people, they think that if they focus on what's not happening in their life, somehow magically it's going to change, and it doesn't. If I could give one calling to everybody here, it's the fact that you are 100% responsible for every single part of your life, even the parts that are not your fault. Now, before you want to punch me in the face, let me explain, right? I don't mean that that thing that happened in your life is your fault. You are not to blame. Blame focuses on the past and what went wrong. Responsibility means the ability to respond. This is how I'm going to perceive it, move about it, go forward in the future. And that's everyone's responsibility, regardless of what happened in your life. So once you start taking responsibility for your life, you start trying to impact the cause of a different 3D environment or results. And you step up one level in that pyramid to behaviors and habits. And most people, they try to form a habit. It takes 21 days to form a habit. You see all this stuff. Well, how many people listening have ever done really, really good for about 2 or 3 weeks and then all of a sudden they fall off? There's a reason why. Because when you try to change at a behavior level, meaning take a different action, which isn't a bad thing. It's not bad. If you want to, let's say, lose weight or gain weight or whatever your goals are, if you take a different action, it will yield a different result when done consistently over time. The problem is that when you try to change at a behavior level, you have to negotiate with the mind. You automatically question if you are capable of making it happen. So it feels like this constant fight, and you have to rely on willpower. Willpower is push motivation,
Yeah.
right? And we all use willpower sometimes. Nothing wrong with willpower. But if you rely on it, it leads to one thing, and that is burnout. We need to get to a place of pull where hard work isn't hard work, where you just move. So when you are changing from a behavior perspective, you're wanting to know, am I doing it right? You're seeking the strategy first, the how, right? And when
Mm.
you crave the how, over crave the how, you likely don't actually take the actions that will yield the results. So, what influences our behaviors and habits? Go one level higher, and that is your capability. And most people don't recognize what's influencing their capability are three things. Number one is what you consume. If you consume social media gossip on a daily basis, that's not really going to help your sales habit, right? If you consume news media, that's not going to really help with practicing gratitude, right? It's going to hurt it. So, number one is what you consume, because whatever goes in your eyes and ears comes out your mouth. And it leads to the second thing, which is skills. You Let's say that you're trying to grow a business and the habit you're trying to deploy is consistent sales or prospecting or marketing. Well, you need to study sales and marketing. The skills of those things are required to change the habits and therefore change the environment. And so we need different skills. If your skills that you're studying is, okay, I just want to learn how to bake cakes, but your goal is to grow a business, well, it's mismatched, right?
Yeah.
But the third thing that's most powerful is that it influences your capability is your peer group. Your life is a direct reflection of the expectations of the people you surround yourself with. And we can have a whole freaking podcast episode on this alone.
Yeah.
It's so important. So these three levels are temporary behavior change. Anything at the capability level, behavior level, and 3D environment level, it doesn't seem to last. And if it ever does, it's because we're changing at a higher level than that. And so it's not bad to change these things. Your capability does influence your behaviors and habits, and that does influence your environment. But most people never decide to change above the line of lasting change, which is what influences all of this. Before I go into that, you seem like you have thoughts, my friend.
Well, I do, because you just said like most people don't go above the line of lasting change. And I think like that intrigues me because it's like, are we saying that like they'll do enough, they start to get going, and then they like revert back, or they just kind of stay at this place that's like good enough? Like, tell me what the line of lasting change is.
Well, the strongest force in the human personality is the need to stay consistent with who you already think you are.
Oh, yes.
And so, if you believe or identify as a failure or think that money is hard to make, you can try all day long to change, but you're going to go back.
Yeah.
You're going to find a way because life will, whatever you believe, will determine the level of potential you tap into. That determines the actions you do or don't take and how well you do them. That determines your results, and it literally reinforces what you believe. That's why, right above this line of lasting change, if you actually want to make change, it's your beliefs and values. That's the next step. That's what actually influences lasting change. So you mentioned, do people go back? They'll go back to what they believe, what they value, and how they identify.
Yeah.
Always. They'll
Yeah.
find a way. And so before I explain that, does that make sense so far?
Yeah, that does. And I think like where I like my brain is like, okay, so I also know that the brain doesn't like dissonance. So if I think I'm a failure, but I just have to walk around going, I'm not a failure. I'm not a failure. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know that that is like the answer, right? Like, so how do I go from like seeing myself and believing that I'm a failure and then actually truly seeing myself and valuing that I'm not a failure?
Yeah, there's three ways to shift any belief pattern. Number one is doubt, right? If you introduce doubt to this, and so that is real life examples, right? If let's use the example of money is hard to make,
Yeah.
right? That's a belief that a lot of people have. Well, if that is the belief, what evidence do you currently have supporting that? Because you're likely overly focusing on it. If you introduce doubt to that belief and say, well, it's not hard for John, it's not hard for
Mhm.
Lesley, like, and you surround yourself with evidence, is that actually true? Or is that something that I was just told growing up? Rich people are greedy. Is that actually true? Or if I take a look around at all the people that I know that have money, they're the ones giving the most to charities, right? So it's evidence that shows that that belief is false. But the challenge with this is changing at a logical level is very, very hard,
Okay.
right? If most people don't recognize that it's next to impossible to logic and reason your way out of anxiety. It just makes the anxiety worse. And it's because it's at a nervous system level, your body responds way faster than thoughts ever will.
Mhm.
So we need to change our beliefs in other ways, and that is pain. We talked earlier about how how change is not really that hard once you have leverage. If you can see the consequences of what happens if you don't change, and actually live those consequences in your mind, you will start to change. I was at a Tony Robbins event years ago, and he shared something that really made an impact on how I viewed behavior change. And he used the example of A Christmas Carol, Ebenezer Scrooge, right? And how he's a total butthead, super mean to all these people because he thinks that that's why he's successful. It's not why he's successful. He's brilliant. He works hard, all these things. And his life was going pretty bad. And he just kept on going until one night, 3 neuroassociative conditioning specialists showed up at his house. The Ghost of Christmas Past, Present, and Future. And they linked up unbearable pain to the way that he's lived up until now, the way that he's living, and what his life will look like if he keeps living that way. And when you're boxed in from the left, from the right, and behind you, guess what? You move. Most people value comfort and safety and certainty, so they don't want to give themselves a healthy dose of pain. They don't want to see the consequences of consistently doing it this way. And people are like, well, I know the consequence is going to hurt me. It's going to hurt my kids. Everyone has a leverage point. But sometimes that leverage point isn't your stereotypical, oh, it's going to hurt my finances. Oh, it's going to hurt my kids. Your job is to find out what it is that you actually will have in your life that's going to cause you pain that you care about. That'll get you to move. That's a second way to create change. The third is vision. Human beings are driven by their need to avoid pain and gain pleasure, right? What we just talked about is pain avoidance, and that's very strong and typically the most strong. But we're also driven by pleasure. And when we can be compelled by a beautiful vision of the future, it gives us a reason to overcome this. So if we think about what identity is, the identity of I'm a failure, that is just a strongly held belief, right? So beliefs and values, beliefs are just feelings of certainty. That's all it is. And a value is an emotional state you live in and value feeling, right? So if we think about a belief as, let's use the example of the sky's blue. Most people think that. But what about during sunset? What about at night? What about sunrise? What about when it's raining? What about the scientific answer that it's not any color, right? It introduces doubt. So we have these beliefs based on evidence in our life, whether that is our upbringing, trauma, consistent results that reinforce this feeling of certainty until we introduce uncertainty to that certainty. So it's so interesting. The thing that you're craving the most of, certainty, that's the very thing that's keeping you in the exact same spot. Right? If we look at it from a values perspective, most people don't recognize they have values conflicts going on, right? Most people value success, but they equally value avoiding rejection. And so that's going to create conflict. And all of this rolls up into your identity, who you think you are. So those 3 things, shifting the identity through doubt, pain, and there's other ways too, and vision, shifting your beliefs and shifting your values, that automatically influence your capabilities, automatically influences your behaviors and habits, cascades down right into different results. And we can do a real life example or we can move on. But the whole point is most people just fall back to where they are because they have a belief at a fundamental level. This is who I am. And your brain will always default to going back there.
Yeah, I do want to do a real life example, but I want to say like probably not a decade ago, but a long time ago, I was listening to a podcast and I really, really so wish I could find this episode, but it was talking about how scientifically they can prove that your brain will tell your body exactly what you're thinking. So they actually took these people and they told them they were going to brand them. They put them in a room, they blindfolded them, they had the fire making the noise, they had the sizzling, they said, this is what the branding is going to look like, this is what it's going to be like, this is what's going to happen to you. Then they did the sizzle, then they touched them with a pen. And some people's arms developed a sore, a redness mark in the shape of the branding that they said. They were not branded. No one was hurt doing this thing. But it's a scientific experiment. And they have also studied people who, if you tell yourself, I'm fat, and you're someone who is wanting to lose weight, that's a journey you want to go on. They have actually seen that those people do produce more fat, have bigger fat cells, all these different things, versus people who don't have a judgment about how they look. Their cells look quite different. Another study they did was a doctor who wanted to know if I scrape a knee or if I drain a knee, which one of those things is actually helping these people's knee issues, right? So they had to take 3 groups. They had to take a group of people who needed this, but they did nothing too. They had to take a group of people that they just drained, and they had a group of people that they just scraped, right? Every single person got put under, got the same music, was told what the surgery was going to be like, And then they waited to see what happened. And the people who had nothing to their knee, nothing, no draining, no scraping, they did 2 little pricks, put them under, played a surgical video while they're in anesthesia. They had the same results as people who had anything done. And so it is this point that like our brains are so powerful. They literally tell us things. And so it's so important what we are telling ourselves that we have to know. So I just want to like highlight everything you said, because it is really important that we tell ourselves the things we actually want to hear. We want our body to do. Yeah.
Well, you know what's interesting too? Have you ever noticed that when a lot of people do affirmations, it doesn't really stick? Why? Have you ever thought why that is? And it's because they're not telling themselves powerfully. When you are about to have a surgery or something like that, and the brain genuinely thinks something is going to happen, it is just like you said, so incredibly powerful. So powerful because the belief is held so strongly that this is going to happen. That's how powerful your brain is. But what we typically do when someone pulls like an affirmation card, right? And it says, I am worthy. And your brain goes, bullshit, right? Or I am abundant. Have you seen your bank account? It's because it's done through less conviction and certainty.
Mm-hmm.
It's done through the lens of basically being passive. And so if you think about all these scenarios are from a place of it's almost like this is fact, where a belief is being communicated with absolute conviction. And so to the degree in which you can be convicted in your statements about yourself, that's the degree that behavior change happens. And once you do, your brain it goes to war for who you think you are or what you think is going to happen. That's why when someone is in a space where you identify them as a success story, the worst things in the world could be happening for them. And without a doubt, they'll be completely fine. They'll figure it out because you always default back to what you feel most convicted about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Real life example. And if it's possible, we didn't do this. We didn't actually talk about like how you got to be so amazing at this.
We just hit the ground running, didn't we?
So like, just in case people think, oh my God, easy for you to say, Brad, like life must be so easy for you. Like, like I think some people, again, the brain is like, oh, okay, well, Lesley and Brad just have it together. Everything works out for them.
Haha.
Okay, really quick side note. I have a bot that is trained off 10 million of my words. And someone asked it like, have you ever had to handle a setback? And my bot thankfully said, yeah, daily. Yeah. So anyways, go ahead.
So I'll share kind of a little bit of backstory. I came out of college, $92,000 in debt. And at that stage in my life, I wanted more money. I wanted to be able to add avocado without having to worry about overdrafting my bank account, right? Like that's what I really wanted. And I found online business and I was like, this is going to change my financial circumstances. But really what I wanted at that stage of my life was to be the breaking point of mediocrity in my family history. I wanted something I could chase after. And so online business was my ticket. A lot of people have other vehicles. That was mine. There was just one problem. It didn't work. I spent 8 years, never making more than $24,000 a year as a group fitness instructor, trying to get a business off the ground. I also had a corporate job, and I'll share a little bit of backstory with that in just a moment, but I would try to get this thing off the ground and it didn't happen. And so my mentor told me, dude, you need a mindset coach. What you're doing clearly isn't working. And I was like, but I'm $92,000 in debt. There's no way that I can hire a coach. And she's like, I don't know what to tell you, man. If nothing changes, nothing changes. So I maxed out a credit card, went $98,000 in debt, hired a coach. Very first call with that coach changed my life fundamentally forever. I was telling her, I'm doing all the podcasts, listening to the books, reading the books. I'm doing all the things. Why isn't it happening for me? I want this to work so bad. And she said very calmly, Brad, you are so attached to success that you're missing the whole point. You're under the impression that you shouldn't be where you are right now. Business, success, and money, it's never going to make you happy. It's rewiring your mind for happiness that will make you successful. And at that stage, I was resenting everything in my life. I was saying it was wrong in some way. I wasn't seeing life happening for me. So I bought a ticket to a conference to really work on shifting my beliefs. I didn't have this technology back then. I didn't understand all this stuff back then. I just knew I needed to change my mindset. That's all I labeled it as back then. And I remember buying the plane ticket, hotel, all that stuff in San Diego. And about a month before that event, I got fired from my job. Now I'm $98,000 in debt now, no income, no savings. But luckily, I had that plane ticket. And I fly across the country, land in San Diego, go to the grocery store, buy peanut butter and jelly like I did 100 times a day at that point, and I overdrafted my bank account on peanut butter and jelly. And it was just this place of defeat where I just felt like nothing was ever going to change. And I walk into that conference, tail between my legs, and the topic that day was all about how the human mind works and shifting your belief systems and identities and values and all these things. And it changed everything. We went on to pay off that 100 grand in debt within a year. We retired my wife from corporate America. We built up multi-million dollar per year business. We've served 70,000 people all over the world. And now we have a little girl, and I'm going to be the dad that I want to be for her and be at every single dance recital or baseball or whatever it is. And it was because of shifting above the line of lasting change. It was because I had the courage to look at those things that most people avoid. And that's my calling to everybody here. And so if we do a real world example of this pyramid, that's literally what I did. If we look at the left side, like imagine that pyramid, that triangle, one identity is I'm a failure, right? Well, cascade that down. What does a failure believe? Success will never happen. Money is hard to make. What does a failure value? They value security. They value safety, right? So, what does that do to my capabilities? What am I going to study if I believe I'm a failure? The news, social media. Who am I going to surround myself with? Other people that identify as failures to prove these beliefs true. So, what happens to my habits? I'll just go through my day. I'll grab a beer at the end of the day, sit on the couch feeling sorry for myself, watching Friends reruns. And so what happens to my environment? Same overdraft, same bank account issues. That was my life. When I shifted this, everything going on behind the scenes and started identifying as, let's use the example of a successful entrepreneur, right? Just as an example. Or let's just use I am successful, right? Well, what's a belief system that comes from someone that identifies as successful? Money flows to me,
Hmm.
or, businesses service, things like that. What does a successful person value? They value success, freedom, love, contribution. Awesome. So let's go down to capabilities. What skills am I studying? Persuasion, marketing, sales. Okay, what am I consuming? Positive, uplifting books and videos and things like that. I'm not spending my time on social media and all that stuff and wasting my brain away comparing to the world. Who am I surrounded by? People that have what I want. So then what cascades into behaviors and habits? I'm focusing on the most important activities, the marketing, the sales. I'm making the offers. I'm putting myself out there in the world. So what happens to my environment? Naturally make more money, naturally serve more people. It all cascades. So the whole point of all of this is my life didn't change until I changed above the line of lasting change. And it's very easy to look at success stories or people that have some semblance of what you want in any capacity and see, okay, yeah, easy for you to say Monster Man, but it doesn't look at the years and years and years of struggle that it
Hmm.
took for me to get to a point where change became a must.
Yeah.
And that's how everything kind of shook out.
I thank you for sharing that. And also, like, I'm sure everyone heard like the be it till you see it in that. Like, in just like, okay, so if you took the first triangle, like I'm failure, I'm poor, whatever, and you go through, like, that's where you were at. And then you take the triangle that you want to be. If I am a successful person, these are the skill sets, this is the mindset, these are the people I'm hanging out with. That's be it till you see it, right? Like, that's truly like why this podcast exists and like why I get so excited, because as I hear you tell that story, I can think of the times, like all the amazing times I had in my life that took me to the next level. I did those things, right? Like, there was a day, so I was homeless and really without address. I had couches to surf on. I had totaled my car leaving my ex's house. So that's fun. And the studio that I rented space for was closing. So now I have no place to teach my clients. I have 1 month to find a new place. I don't have a place I actually live. So that's a problem because I lived in LA. So I need to live where I'm going to teach, right? And then I have no car. So I'm at Whole Foods because, when you're living off credit cards, you go to Whole Foods for a salad, guys. And I'm I'm at Whole Foods and I get a phone call, and I never answer my phone, but I answer my phone and it's like, "Hi, this is Los Angeles Magazine. Congratulations, you're the best Pilates instructor in Los Angeles. You're going to be in the next issue. We want to invite you to this thing." And I'm like sitting there And like the clothes I've been in since the morning, because I have not made it to the gym yet where I can shower. And I'm like, wow, I thought people paid for this. Like I thought like I didn't pay for this. Do you have the right phone number? They're like, nope. We went to your class and you were voted and like you got this. And I was like, oh, amazing. That's so amazing. I sat there and I'm like, holy moly, like I'm homeless. I have no place to, all these things are happening. And I remember going, okay, well, I am now the best Pilates instructor in Los Angeles. So where does she teach and where does she live and who does she take to this party? And I did all those things. My life changed dramatically. You guys, I ended up like literally making friends with someone who ended up my husband. I had one of the best studios and Pilates businesses in Los Angeles. Like everything changed because like I sat there and I was like, okay, I can sit here and like wallow in my sweat and my overdraft. I actually was probably on overdraft, but I was using a credit card. But like, but like I can sit here in that. Or I can go, someone just deemed me the best Pilates instructor. So if they think I am, like, what would that person do? And how does that person act? And it changed my whole life. And then it happened again in 2020. And like, it just, so I sit here and I listen to you and I'm like, my goodness, like we can do this whenever we need to. And then it, like, you don't have to wait. We can actually make these changes. And I think it's really so fun to listen to you because you just get so excited. I'm sure everyone's saying like, get so excited, go, oh, this change is possible. Like you make it all possible. And so I just thank you. What are you most excited about right now?
Oh man, right now I am excited for delivering people the insights of daily motivation that they need. I'm developing this entirely new thing that's super, super exciting to help people just have consistent motivation in their lives every day for this exact concept that we're talking about. And
Mm.
also taking my daughter to Disney, which is going to be freaking cool. So,
Oh my God. That's going to be, I think you'll probably have more fun memories than she will, depending how
yeah,
old she
seriously.
is. That is so cool. That is so cool. Oh my gosh. Okay, Brow, I could talk to you forever, truly, truly, but we're gonna take a brief break and then we're gonna find out if people can stalk you in the best way and your beat action items. All right, Brad, where do you hang out? Where can people work with you if they want to do this with you? If they want more than 35 minutes of you in their ear, like what can they do?
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of just consistent places where I'm showing up on the Gram Jam at Brad Bizjack, I add motivational tips there on an ongoing basis. But if you really want to take these concepts and make them real, this is actually really, really amazing timing because starting next week, I have a 5-day challenge that literally does everything we're talking about and makes them real in your life. It's called the Success Accelerator. This program has helped over 70,000 people shift their beliefs and identities and values to help them become the very best version of themselves, the version that they really want to be. And so, yeah, it starts next week. There's going to be a ton of people in there. If you want to see how high performers achieve their goals faster than all their peers with less stress, if you want to see how do we take these principles and really bring them to life in real time, giving you real tactical things to do each day to really make this happen, come into the Success Accelerator program. It's going to be really, really powerful. So those would be the two best ways.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll put the link in the show notes. We'll also email it to you guys if you're on the podcast email list. My Brad and I did this. That's exactly what I said at the beginning of the show. It's absolutely wonderful. I'm telling you, like I would do it again just because I think it's so important to remind yourself because there's always like another thing. You're like, oh, I didn't do that one. I didn't do that part. I got this part. So I think it's just so amazing what you do. And you guys, it is 5 days, but it's wonderful. And it's a great way to start your day. You're gonna want to do it. And there's replays. So you can always watch it later if you have to work. Okay, you have given us a ton, but we have to ask the question, bold, executable, intrinsic, or targeted steps people can take to be it till they see it. What do you have for us?
Oh my goodness, this is such a good one. This is probably one of the things that I'm most excited about right now. I have a very interesting take on big dreams and big goals. A lot of people will say things like be realistic and stuff like that. I am actually completely different. The number one thing that I believe is you have to be compelled by a beautiful vision of the future. Otherwise, you'll default to focusing on the past and present. So number one, by the way, is unreasonable dreams and goals. In my opinion, that's number one. And then taking full responsibility for making that happen. I think a lot of people hold themselves back from doing that. And if you start there, and we'll talk a lot about this in the challenge next week on how to do that successfully, that'll go a long way in actually making them possible. So
Mm,
that's number one.
I love that. We've had a few people say those smart, tangible goals, blah, blah,
Ugh.
blah, 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 blah. And that's really, if you do like an actual habit, like that makes sense. But like for a vision, no one gets out of bed for a reasonable, like Like, you know, like if shit hits the fan and you have a reasonable goal to work on, you're just going to work on the shit that hit the fan and not like the reasonable goal. So I fucking love that. Brad, you are awesome. You guys, please let us know how you're going to use these tips in your life, what your favorite takeaways are. If you sign up for the Success Accelerator, I want to know. I promise you it will be 5 days well spent. I'm telling you from experience. And send this to a friend who needs to hear it because, as Brad said, like the people we hang around, they affect us. And so if you don't want to lose them, they need to hear this so that they can level up as well with you. So, Brad, thank you so much. And until next time, everyone, be it till you see it.
That's all I got for this episode of the Be It Till You See It podcast. One thing that would help both myself and future listeners is for you to rate the show and leave a review. And follow or subscribe for free wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, make sure to introduce yourself over at the Be It Pod on Instagram. I would love to know more about you. Share this episode with whoever you think needs to hear it. Help us and others be it till you see it. Have an awesome day.
Be It Till You See It is a production of the Bloom Podcast Network. If you want to leave us a message or a question that we might read on another episode, you can text us at +1 310 905 5534 or send a DM on Instagram at BeItPod.
It's written, filmed, and recorded by your host, Lesley Logan, and me, Brad Crowell.
It is transcribed, produced, and edited by the epic team at Diseño.co.
Our theme music is by Ali at Apex Production Music, and our branding by designer and artist Gianfranco Cioffi.
Special thanks to Melissa Solomon for creating our visuals.
Also to Angelina Herrico for adding all of our content to our website. And finally, to Meredith Root for keeping us all on point and on time.